Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Love Against the Throne. Episode 10. Chapter 46. Cassius's POV. The ride in the limo was silent. I just looked out the window as my mind was in chaos. Every stabbing word my mate had said to me played over and over in my mind. I hate you. She had screamed at me in front of my parents and so many others. Deep down, I know she didn't mean it. Still, it made Enoch cry in pain and my heart ache. I sighed. Things would be all right, I hoped as we neared Zephyr Moon. 20 minutes later, we reached the border of the territory. The limo slowed as Alpha Mackenzie's guards stopped us. I rolled down my window as a very tall, African American with golden eyes leaned down. Your Majesty, the guard bowed his head. I am here to see your Alpha, I stated as I looked over the man. He nodded. Go on in, he smiled at me. Paul, is it? I said to him, and he stiffened. Yes, he replied. I laughed. Thank you, Paul. I rolled the window back up and signaled to Bruce to continue into the territory. I could see what Gemma saw in Paul. He was an imposing guard. And those eyes intrigued even me, and I'm a guy. 10 more minutes, and we reached Zephyr Moon's substantial pack house. Bruce opened the door for me, and Alpha Philip was waiting for me with his beta and several other pack members. They all bowed as I stepped out of the limo. Phil, you are my father-in-law. You don't have to bow. He shrugged. I want to set a good example for my pack, he winked at me. To what do we owe this honor? I snorted and rolled my eyes at his formalities. I need to speak with you about your grandson. His eyes widened and then narrowed. Okay, he said with suspicion and glanced at his beta. What do you want with Nick? The beta asked with concern. I sighed. Let's talk inside, please, I replied to them. You'll have to excuse my beta, Cass. Nicholas is his grandson also. Phil stepped forward and patted my shoulder. Let's go to my office and talk. He led us into the pack house. Phil's pack bowed as we walked. I spied the blonde-haired child running around chasing a blonde she-wolf in the common room. They stopped as I walked by. Dad! The she-wolf called to Phil. Dad, what is the king doing here? Phil smiled. He's just here to talk about your sister, Tiffany. I held out a hand to her. Tiffany. I smiled at my mate's younger sister. She nodded. Yes, she shook my hand. I can't wait for Gemma's coronation. I love fancy parties. Tiffany, Cassius, and I need to talk in my office, he said to his youngest child. Tag, I got you, Auntie Tiffy. Gemma's son lightly slapped Tiffany and grinned up at Phil and me. Tiffany laughed at the child. If you'll excuse us, Your Majesty. My nephew and I are playing tag. It's Cass, to you, Tiffany, I winked at her as she ran off after the lively pup. Phil continued leading me and his beta to the office. We walked in, and I sat down in a seat in front of the desk. Phil sat behind his desk while his beta leaned against the wall. So, how is Gemma? She will be okay, philosophy. He nodded. Good, I know you said it earlier. But a father can't hear those words enough. He sighed, so what is this about Nick, that you needed to come all the way here to talk? I folded my hands and set them on my knee. Looking down, I must have looked strange, only wearing a pair of shorts and a t-shirt while Phil and his beta were dressed for business. I made a huge mistake with your daughter, philosophy. I started. The alpha raised an eyebrow at me, and what would that be, Cassius? I separated her from her pup. I thought it was for the best because the pup looks like his father, I said as the beta growled. Calm down, Mark, Phil said to his beta. You know how we males are about our mates, especially alpha males. We are possessive, and the thought of other males touching them fills us with rage. The thought of another male touching Gemma filled me with anger, even if it was in the past. I saw the pup as a sign of Gemma's infidelity. But that's stupid. It wasn't infidelity, I explained as the two men listened quietly. So because of my stupidity, I nearly ruined my chances with Gemma before they started. I thought we were working it out until she spoke with her son earlier. I glanced at the beta. I believe her son has been calling your son's mate, Mommy, and that greatly upset her. The beta sighed. I told Jeremy that it would be a bad idea. I know how possessive Gemma can be over her pup. He looked at his alpha. I'm sorry if my son did anything to upset her. It's not your fault, beta. Though he must have said something bad to cause her to throw her phone across the room. I only heard her side of the conversation. I'll talk to my son about it. No need for that. I am here to ask you to allow Nicholas to come live at the palace. Gemma needs her pup. And I suspect her pup needs her. I hate to take him away from his father. But Gemma hates me for what I did. Phil and his beta exchanged glances. Cassius, you would need to discuss this with Jeremy. Mark, call your son in here. The beta's eyes glazed over a second. Jeremy will be here shortly. Thank you, I replied to the beta. We sat in silence for a moment until Jeremy showed up. He walked into the office dressed in black shorts and nothing else. He was sweaty and bruised up as he had been in the middle of a sparring match. You could have at least put on something appropriate, Mark said to his son. Jeremy shrugged. Sorry, Dad, I was training with Lewis, and then spied me sitting in the chair. He stiffened as he and I exchanged a tense look. This was the wolf that took my mate's innocence. He narrowed his eyes at me. What is the king doing here? He asked his father. I am here to discuss your and Gemma's pup, I said to him. A low growl came out of him. Discuss what exactly? He folded his arms. Jeremy, sit and hear what King Cassius has to say, Phil said to him. Jeremy sat in the opposite chair mine and folded his arms. I'm listening. I took a deep breath as I looked over the disrespectful male. Look, I want your son to come live at the palace. For Gemma's sake. She misses her pup. Oh, so now you are sorry for ripping my son's mother away from him. What happened? Did you finally figure out what he move that was? Phil growled. Jeremy, have to care how you speak to the king. Sorry, Alpha, but it's true. Taking a young pup from his mother the way you did move. I laughed. You are right, Jeremy. It was move that I greatly regret. It has nearly cost me everything with Gemma because I couldn't get over the fact that she had been with another man before me, I explained. The blonde man smirked, couldn't stand the fact that I am the one who popped her cherry, hey. I growled at him. Jeremy. His father barked at him, the king. I am not speaking to Cassius, the king. I am speaking to another man who can't handle the fact that I took his mate's virginity. Am I right, King Cassius? Jeremy said with arrogance. I gripped the arms of the chair as I had to repress the urge to rip his head off. His father and Alpha both growled at him. I took a deep breath. Look, I did not come here to discuss my mate's love life before now. All right? I want your son to come live at the palace. I wanted to steer the conversation back on track. Your son will be treated well, like a prince. And what about me? Can I still see my son? Jeremy asked. I nodded, yes, you will be able to come to the palace anytime you want to see your pup, Jeremy. I will let you and Gemma work out custody and visitation. He leaned back in his seat. You'll let me near Gemma, despite our history. I growled lowly as Jeremy kept pushing my buttons. I wondered what Gemma had seen in him. Yes, I gritted my teeth as I replied. Fine, but you'll have to ask my son if he wants to go. He looked at his father. Dad, do you know where Nick was? I left him with Tiffany before I went to training. I think he is still with her. They were playing tag earlier, Phil interjected. A moment later, there was a knock on the door, and the beta opened it. Phil's youngest daughter had the pup in her arms. What's up, Dad? She asked her father. She put the pup down, and he ran over to Jeremy. Daddy, he smiled and climbed onto his father's lap. You stink, Daddy. He wrinkled his little nose. I couldn't help but laugh. He was starting to look more like Gemma to me. Hello Nick, I said to the pup. He turned to me. Hi, he waved shyly. Jeremy held onto his son. Nick, this is King Cassius. He has something to ask you. I leaned towards them. Nick, I want you to come live at my palace with your mommy. His eyes lit up. Mommy. He hopped off of Jeremy's lap and walked up to me. Where is Mommy? She lives with me at the royal palace. And she really misses you. She would be very happy if you lived there too, I explained to the blue-eyed pup. I really love your mommy and want her to be happy. Nicholas turned to his father. What about Daddy? I sighed. Your daddy can come to visit us anytime he wants. The pup looked between me and his father with slight confusion. Jeremy pulled him back towards him. Nick, I think you should go live with your mommy. I will be okay. I'll come to visit anytime. What do you say? I asked the pup. He smiled at me. Okay, he replied as there was another knock on the door. Luna Melinda walked in. Cassius, is Gemma all right? She asked as she sat on Phil's lap. Yes, she is fine, Melinda. She leaned into Phil as he wrapped an arm around her waist. So, what are you doing here? I came here to see if Nick wants to come live at the palace, I explained to her. I messed up big time when I made Gemma leave without him. And I need to fix what I broke, I said to the Luna. She smiled. it about time you came to your senses." She looked at Nicholas. "Nicky, do you want to go live with your mama at the big royal palace?" The pup was sitting on his father's lap again. "Yes, Grandma." "Melinda, I want you and Phil to bring Nicky to the palace tomorrow so that I can surprise Gemma. I know it's a couple of days earlier than you planned to come." Phil exchanged a look with his mate, then looked at his beta. "I think it will be all right, Cassius. Beta Mark is more than capable of taking care of the pack for a couple of more days, right Mark?" "You know I am, Phil," Mark snorted. "Then it's settled. You and Melinda bring the pup tomorrow. But don't say a word to Gemma about it." I smiled as I imagined her happiness at seeing her pup again and then learning he was staying. "Are you excited to see your mom?" I asked Nick. He nodded. "In a few months, you'll have a new brother and sister to play with," I said to him. "Gemma is pregnant?" Jeremy asked me. I nodded, "with twins." Melinda laughed. "I just knew that would happen." "And you already know it'll be a boy and a girl?" the beta asked. "Oh, it will be a boy and a girl," Melinda added. "It's always a boy and a girl." Her phone began to ring in her pocket. She pulled it out, and her eyes grew wide. "It's Izzy." "Oh, I asked her to stay with Gemma while I came here." Melinda's smile faded as she ran out of the room. Seconds later, I heard her talking to someone on the phone. "I hope everything is all right with Gemma," Phil stated with worry. "My doctors said she would be all right. And my wolf hasn't indicated anything being amiss," I explained as Melinda walked back into the office and handed the phone to Phil. Melinda mouthed, "It's Gemma," to him. "Gemma?" Phil said into the phone. "Gemma, are you all right?" he asked his daughter. "I'm fine, Daddy," I heard Gemma's voice on the other side of the phone as Phil sighed with relief. "Daddy, is Cassius there?" Phil looked over at me. "Yes," he replied to her. "Why?" she asked. I shook my head at Phil. "Don't tell her why," I whispered to him. "We are talking. He is trying to gain insight into being the mate of a white wolf," the alpha explained to my mate. "Can I talk to him?" I heard Gemma ask. I shook my head. "Tell her I'll talk to her later when I return home." I mind-linked Phil. "No, he'll talk to you when he gets back to the palace. I have to go." "Here, talk to your mother again," he pushed the phone back to Melinda. Nick started giggling as he had been chatting with his father. "Yes, baby. I am here," Melinda said into the phone as she walked out of the office again. I stood up. "I better get home." The rest all stood up. I looked at Jeremy and held out my hand to him. He was holding Nick as he took my hand. "Thank you, Jeremy. Gemma will appreciate seeing her pup. I'll be at the palace in a week or so, anyway," he smiled. "I have alpha/beta training with Ian." "Oh, that works out. You'll be able to work things out with Gemma, then. Can I hang out with her too? She is still one of my best friends." I sighed. "Yes, Jeremy. You can hang out with her, as long as you behave yourself. I promise." "It will be for Nick." He smiled at his son. "Bye, Nick." I touched the pup's arm as he smiled at me. You have your mother's smile, Nick. The pup snuggled against his father's chest, suddenly shy. Thank you, Phil. I shook my father-in-law's hand and then faced the beta. Thank you too, Mark. They both nodded. You take care of my daughter, Cassius. Phil pulled me into a guy hug. You know I will, I hugged him back. See you tomorrow, Phil. My dad will be happy to see you too. Phil laughed. I can't wait to see that old bastard. He then leads me out of the office. Melinda was standing in the hall talking to Tiffany. They both smiled as we walked towards them. See you both tomorrow, I hugged Melinda and then turned to Tiffany. I get to go too, Tiffany looked at her parents. I'm sure Gemma would be happy to see her sister too, I replied to her. She smiled at me and hugged me. Oops, sorry, Cass. I patted her back. She sort of reminded me of my sister. It's all right, Tiffany. You feel free to hug me anytime, I winked at her. Bye, everyone. Phil and I walked out of the pack house to my waiting limo. Bruce opened the door, and I slid in. Bye, philosophy. I waved at my father-in-law as the door was closed. Drop me off in front of the hospital, Bruce, I said as my driver took his seat. Yes, Your Majesty. 20 minutes later, I had fallen asleep and was awoken by Bruce opening the door. Sorry, sir. We are here. I shook my head and slid out of the limo. Thank you, Bruce. I hadn't noticed how exhausted I was. My fatigue was finally starting to affect me. I just wanted to see Gemma and then take her back to our room and then go to sleep. I walked down the hospital hall and stood in the doorway of the room my mate was in. She was sleeping peacefully. Despite what she had said to me, I still felt all the love in the world for her. This woman here owned my heart and soul. I wanted to scoop her up into my arms and hold her tight. She stirred in her sleep and then opened those violet eyes and looked at me. Hi, she squeaked out. I just stood in the doorway, looking down at her without expression. Cassius, I'm sorry, her beautiful voice spoke out. Please don't hate me, tears filled her beautiful eyes as she began to sob. I don't hate you. Please talk to me, she buried her head in her hands. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to be next to her. I crossed the length of the room in a second and sat on the bed beside her. She immediately crawled onto my lap, and I wrapped my arms around her. I took in her heavenly scent, and everything that happened earlier melted away. I just needed my mate. I adjusted myself, so I was lying on the bed while she lies on my chest. I traced my hand down her cheek. I love you, Cassius. My heart burst at her words. There is nothing in this world that I love more than you, Gemma, I finally spoke to her. Jeremy's POV. I held my son as the royal limo drove away from the pack house. I had agreed to allow Nicholas to live at the royal palace with his mother. It was for the best. It would help me achieve my goal of winning Gemma back. She was about to be crowned queen, and she was pregnant with the king's pups. But I knew that I could get her back. I would remind her of what we had. I set Nick down and lead him up to my room. Want to watch your cartoons? I asked him. He nodded and ran over to the couch in front of the TV. I turned on the TV and flipped through the channels until I found his favorite show. I sat on the couch next to him. Esther walked into the room a few minutes later and sat beside me. I saw the king. He is hard to miss, I replied sarcastically. Why was he here? She asked as I tried holding her hand. She pulled away. She had never liked much contact with me. I sighed with frustration. He came here to ask me if he could take Nick to the palace so he can live with Gemma, I explained to her. And you said no, right? I shook my head. I said yes. Nick needs his mother, Esther. I knew she had gotten attached to my son. But I didn't want her to think she was replacing Gemma. But what about us? She folded her arms. King Cassius said I could go see Nick anytime I wanted. It's up to Gemma and me to figure out custody arrangements. I was getting to like caring for him. He is even calling me mommy. Esther sounded upset. Not that I cared. You aren't his mother, Esther, I explained to her. She scoffed. You were the one that encouraged it. You told me it would be better for him. I traced a finger over her belly and looked into her brown eyes, imagining I was touching Gemma. It will give us a chance to work on having one of our own. She cringed as I touched her. I have to use the restroom. She stood up and walked into the bathroom. A low growl fell out of my chest. The cold heart woman I gave up the love of my life for was starting to sicken me. She rarely allowed me to even kiss her, let alone touch her. We had been with rarely. Not that I wanted it with her. Still, I was feeling the need as I imagined Gemma. I stood up and looked down at my son. Nicky, you stay here and watch your cartoons, I said to my son. I then walked into the bathroom and saw Esther staring at the mirror. You wish I were Gemma, she mumbled. I walked over to her and placed my hands on her shoulders. She stiffened as I kissed her neck. Gemma would let me touch her. She didn't writhe away from me. I moved my hands down her chest and under her shirt. You won't even give me a blowjob. We rarely have been with, and you wonder why I imagine myself with another woman. I hissed in her ear. She turned herself around till we were facing each other. I told you, Jeremy. I don't like being touched. It's not you. I placed a kiss on her lips and felt the faint sparks of our bond. I bit her lower lip, making her gasp. I should just take from you what I want. You are my mate, after all. She whimpered as her hands pressed against my chest in an attempt to push me away. Her eyes looked away as I backed up from her. Sighing, I walked out of the bathroom. I sat on the couch with a sigh of frustration. What's wrong, Daddy? Nick asked while climbing on my lap. I am all right, buddy. Are you excited to see your mommy tomorrow? I asked him. Yes, he hopped off my lap and picked up one of his cars. Can I take my cars? I nodded. Of course you can. I'm sure you'll get a big room to fit all of your toys. I'll have my own room, he asked with glee. I laughed. You bet. Esther walked out of the bathroom and stood in front of the door. I'm going to go hang out with the girls. I'll be back later. Ask Tiffany if she wouldn't mind taking Nick for the night, I said to her. She tilted her head. I have plans with my mate. I gave her a sinister look as she walked out of the room. I looked down at Nick and ruffled his hair. There was a knock on the door. I answered it to my mother and Luna Melinda. We are here to help you pack up Nick's things, my mother said as she pushed past me into the room. Luna Melinda had some bags and a box. Phil and I will take a few things tomorrow. Then your parents will send the rest after the coronation. I nodded as I stood up and took the boxes from my Luna. My mother sniffled as she walked over to the drawers where I kept Nick's clothes. Mom, are you crying? She shook her head. No, Jeremy. It will be all right, right, Luna? I patted my mother's back as she neatly placed Nick's clothes into a bag. Nick will be well cared for, and I'm sure King Cassius and Gemma will allow you and Dad to visit whenever. Jeremy is right, Liz. Luna Melinda stood next to my mother. My mother paused. I know Nick will be all right, Melinda. But I'll miss my little boo, she sighed. I'll leave some stuff here for when he comes to visit. I patted her back and walked back over to the couch. Nick was engrossed by his cartoons. He barely noticed that his grandmothers were in the room. Hey buddy, why don't you go cheer up your Nana? She is sad. He ran over and tugged on my mother's shirt. Nana, what did the duck say to the dog? My mother picked him up and kissed his cheek. No, what did the duck say to the dog? Quack, because that's what ducks say. He laughed, which made my mother laugh. Did Papa teach you that? Mom asked my son. Luna Melinda snorted. Certainly sounds like something Mark would teach him. Papa is funny, Nick giggled. My mother tickled him. Your papa is very funny. She kissed him and set him down. Want to help me and Grandma pack your things? Pick out your favorite toys to take to the palace. Nick nodded and then started running around, picking up his favorite toys. Mostly his toy car collection. My mother was smiling as he helped. I should have helped too, but my mother and the Luna needed this. An hour later, the bags were packed and sitting by the door of my room. I took Nick to the dining room for dinner. I sat by Esther, and we ate dinner in silence while Nick chatted with my parents. Jeremy, Tiffany said to me. I can take Nick tonight? Esther asked if I could. Thanks, Tiff, I smiled at her. After dinner, Nick went to his aunt's room. I sat on the couch next to Esther with my arm around her. A plan was forming in my head as we sat in silence. I would reject Esther before I left for the palace in 2 weeks to go to Alpha/Beta training. Then I was going to increase my efforts to win back Gemma. Enough of faking happiness with the cold fish next to me. I would take Gemma and Nick far away and live happily for once. We could go to Greece as we had discussed a long time ago. Hopefully, it would be too far away from here for the king to find us. Oh, come on, Esther. Just a little blow job. I looked at her. She sighed and slid off the couch, and started. There was no enthusiasm on her part. Oh yeah, I growled. Gemma is not our mate, why are you thinking of her? My wolf Rex growled. You know why, I replied to him. Take off your clothes and lay on the bed, I ordered her. Jeremy, I don't want, I growled at her. I don't do what you want, Esther. Now get on the bed. I stood up. I looked down at her. She was weak for a she-wolf from a beta bloodline. Slender and almost bony, I hate looking at her body. I had to imagine it was Gemma lying there waiting for me. I smiled as I climbed on top of my mate. Esther whimpered as tears fell down her cheeks. I placed my hand on her throat and squeezed. She gasped for air. "It hurts, Jeremy," she cried. "Please stop." I do, despite her protests. "You want a pup, Esther? This is how it's done. Now stop crying." I growled at her. Oh, how I hated this woman. I regretted every day since I had to accept her. My father had insisted I give up Gemma for her. I resented my old man for that. Oh Gemma, I imagined in my head. Gemma would love to get it from me. She would be moaning while screaming my name. She would meet my rhythm and not just lie there. I growled as I dug my nails into the back of Esther's neck as she cried into the pillow. "It hurts," her muffled cries protested. "Well, if we did it more often, it wouldn't hurt," I growled against her ear. Finally, I rolled off of her and lay on my side, facing away from her. She continued to cry as I imagined Gemma beside me. "I'm coming for you, Gemma," I whispered. "You, me, and Nick will be happy." I closed my eyes and fell into a comfortable sleep as my so-called mate cried behind me. Gemma's POV. I found myself in the cold cell. My arms were burning as I screamed from the pain of the silver chains. "Let me go," I shouted into the darkness. The sinister voice cackled as I saw polished boots step into the little light streaming through the small window. Finally, I saw a face as he stepped out of the shadows. He resembled Cassius in a way. Like you could tell they were related somehow. His hair was a lighter shade of brown, but he also had blue eyes, but they were not the calming ocean blue that made me smile. His face was smooth, and he wasn't as tall or muscular as Cassius. "Do you not like your accommodations, Your Majesty?" His smooth cold voice spoke to me. "Rude," he growled as he stepped into the cell and knelt in front of me. He roughly grabbed my chin and brought my face up to look into his eyes. I spat in his face. I groaned in pain as he punched me hard. I spit blood out of my mouth. "You hit like a girl." He tightened his hold on my chin and dug his claws into my skin. "Soon, Cassius will be dead, and the kingdom will be mine," he hissed as everything went dark. I screamed and sat straight up in bed. My heart pounded against my chest. I felt the bed move as Cassius placed a hand on my back. "Gemma." His deep voice rumbled out. "Gemma, are you all right?" I looked back at him and nodded. "Just another bad dream." I lay down, placing my face on his warm chest. He wrapped his arm around me. "The same one?" he asked. I saw his face this time. I felt tears falling down my face. I sensed something terrible was about to happen, and I had no idea how to stop it. "What did he look like?" Cassius asked quietly while tracing a finger along my arm. My skin tingled from the contact. "He looked like you, but not really. Lighter brown hair, with blue eyes except not beautiful like yours." I traced circles around his muscles. "He looked like he could be your cousin." Cassius growled lowly. "Did he say his name?" "Not yet, I shook my head as he tightened his hold on me. I felt myself start to tremble. Cassius, I'm scared. My love, you have nothing to fear. Everything will be all right. You are just having bad dreams. He was trying so hard to make me feel better. I looked up into his blue eyes as I stroked his cheek, remembering what I had said to him yesterday. Guilt filled my heart as I closed my eyes. I am so sorry about yesterday, I whispered. Let's not talk about that, he whispered back. Let's move forward. Today will be a better day, Gemma. He was running his hand through my hair. My stomach growled in hunger as I looked at the clock. It was time to get up and start our day. Cass, can I go do some training after breakfast? I asked him. I need to get out some frustration. He sighed. If you must. He let go of me and rolled out of bed. He walked into the bathroom, and I scrambled off the bed and followed him. He turned on the shower. Look, how about I just work with a dummy and kick the crap out of that? I smiled as I wrapped my arms around him. That way, I won't hurt any of your warriors. He laughed and kissed my lips. That works for me. He clasped my hand and pulled me into the shower. Shall we? After a long, we emerged through the steam and stepped into our closet. I pondered what I wanted to wear today. Wanting to make up with him, I actually chose a dress to wear. A light blue summer dress with white polka dots that I finished off with white sandals. I twirled it as I looked in the mirror. What's the occasion? He asked from behind me. He had put on black slacks and a blue button-up shirt. No occasion, I leaned my back against his chest. He wrapped his arms around me and lay his chin on top of my head. I like that dress, he smiled. Let's get you to breakfast. I can hear your tummy rumbling. He grabbed my hand, and we walked out of our room. We stopped at the elevator and were joined by Terry and Izzy. I wondered where Ainsley and her mate were. Morning, kids, Terry said to us. You two look like you made up. He smiled at me. Izzy eyed me and then lifted an eyebrow. I see Cassius made you wear a dress. I shrugged. He didn't make me wear this. I chose it. Really? Izzy snorted and glanced at Terry. I like it, Mother, Cassius said to her. The doors of the elevator opened, and we walked in silently. The ride to the ground floor was quiet as the doors opened. Where is Ainsley? I asked Izzy. She shrugged. She and Casper went on a date last night. I think they are still sleeping. She smirked at Terry. They were rather busy last night, or so I heard when I walked by her room. I laughed. Oh, I looked up at Cassius, who rolled his eyes. We reached the dining room, and everyone stood up as Izzy and Terry stood behind their seats. Good morning, everyone, Cassius greeted everyone. I know yesterday was a rough day. He clasped my hand and looked down at me. The Queen and I had an argument that you all heard. We said some nasty things out of anger. But please know that your Queen and I are all right. I didn't like him talking about our relationship with everyone. But I figured it was necessary since I screamed my frustrations at him in front of everyone else. He pulled my hand to his lips. Today will be better, as I have a huge surprise in store for my beautiful Queen. I tilted my head as he smiled at me. Now, let's all have a good day, and let's eat." He then sat down as the Omegas brought out breakfast. "What surprise?" I asked him. He just smirked as breakfast was set in front of us. It was omelets again, cheese, spinach, and onions with home fries on the side. I dug into the food feeling extra hungry today. "Hey Gemma," my brother called to me from down the table. "Want to do some sparring today? There isn't any alpha training today." I glanced at Ian. "Sure, I mean, I was going to spar with a dummy, but you will do," I smirked at him. "Are you calling me a dummy?" I shrugged, "If the shoe fits." He growled, "I'm not a dummy." "You're a dummy." I glared at him, "No, I'm pretty sure you are the dummy." "Gemma, quit arguing with your brother," Cassius chuckled. "Cass, Ian, and I have been arguing with each other since we were in our mom's uterus." I made a face at my brother as Cassius rolled his eyes. "Is it alright if I spar with Ian?" "Cass, I promise I'll go easy on her," my brother said to Cassius. "I sparred with her when she was pre-go with Nick." "I trust you, Ian," Cassius replied to him. "You are probably the only male I fully trust to spar with her." "Gemma, do you think it's safe to spar while pregnant?" Delilah asked me. I nodded at her. "If it's done right, it's very safe. I don't like being idle, and going 6 months without sparring will drive me nuts. The babies are very tiny right now, so they won't be affected at all. You can come spar with me sometime, and I'll show you some moves you can do while pregnant." She shook her head. "I am not a warrior, like you. Do you have any fighting skills? As Luna, you need to know at least how to defend yourself and your pups." My father is one of those that doesn't think females should train. The females and pups would just hide in the safe room while he and the males all took care of any threat. I sighed. I think that's a disservice to any pack not to allow females to fight. Even if it is just self-defense, everyone in a pack should at least know that. Even the Omegas train back at Zephyr Moon. "I would be honored if you teach me some things, Gemma," Delilah smiled at me. "We'll get started next week after my coronation." I looked at my brother. "Would that be all right, Ian?" He nodded. "Of course, Gemma. I trust you to give my mate some pointers." He clasped Delilah's hand and brought it to his lips to place a kiss. I quickly finished my breakfast and then went back to my room to grab training clothes. I stuffed them into a bag and then headed out. I rushed to the training field and went into the women's dressing room, and changed out of my dress. I got in my black shorts and a black tank top. I looked down at my still slender stomach and rubbed my belly. I smiled as I imagined my pups. I couldn't wait to meet them. Sighing, I headed out to the field where Ian was waiting for me with a couple of the other young alphas. "What's with the crowd?" My brother shrugged. "I guess they wanted to watch." "They wanted to watch a future alpha get him kicked by the queen," I smirked. "No, I am going to kick you," he snarled as his friends laughed. We started by warming up with sit UPS and push UPS. Then we ran a couple of laps around the field. I took my fighting stance as Ian, and I started to spar with each other. We ignored the other young alphas and focused on each other. We had been sparring with each other since we were 10. We knew each other's moves. True to his word, Ian made sure not to strike anywhere near my stomach. Bruises formed on our bodies as contact became a little rougher. We trained for a couple of hours, taking only a few breaks. Ian landed with a thud as I flipped him over my shoulder and placed my foot on his chest. He smiled up at me as a pair of arms grabbed me from behind. A familiar scent engulfed me. I see you can still kick your brother, my father spoke behind me. I turned myself in his hold and wrapped my arms around him. Dad! I squealed happily. What are you doing here? I'm here for your coronation, of course. This early? It isn't for a few more days. I said to him. Not that I cared. I was happy to see my father. He is my hero. Your mother wanted to come early to help Izzy with the arrangements. He smiled as he kissed the top of my head. There was a loud growl beside us as Cassius's scent took over my senses. I was still wrapped in my father's arms. You can let go of my mate now, Alpha. Cassius's deep voice said to my father. My father smirked at him. Cassius, your mate came out of my nutsack. You, Dad. I smacked him and struggled out of his hold and stood by my brother. Is that so, Alpha? Cassius took a fighting stance in front of my father. My father smirked and stood in front of my mate. Should I go into the details of their conception? My brother and I both cringed. Dad! Ian cried out. I don't think this is an appropriate conversation to have with a lady present, Cassius said to my father. And who are you to tell me what I can and cannot say in front of my children? My father pushed Cassius. Cassius pushed back. I am your king, Alpha Philip, he pushed back. Dad, are you seriously starting a fight with my mate? He winked at me. Relax, Gemma. I am just going to show this pup here a thing or two. He launched his fist into Cassius's face. There was suddenly a crowd around us as my father and mate began to spar roughly. They were going at it pretty rough as blood poured out of both of them from wounds that quickly healed. Go, Dad! Ian cheered. Kick him! Ian! I smacked my brother. Should we be encouraging this? Oh, come on, Gemma, Dad, won't hurt Cassius. I looked out at the field as my father had Cassius on the ground and was punching him over and over. The young alphas and various warriors and guards were cheering them on. Then Cassius got the upper hand and pushed my father off of him. They snarled and growled as they grappled for power. They were both smiling as they sparred. Go, Dad! I shouted at them, causing Cassius to look at me. Really? He said to me, which left him open to attack. My father tackled my mate to the ground and punched his back. There was a loud growl from outside the crowd. They parted as Terry ran into the ring. Hold on, son. I'm coming, Terry shouted as he joined in on the fight and tackled my father to the ground. Then it was 2 against 1 as Terry and Cassius went for my father. I was impressed that my father held his own against the king and the former king. 3 of the strongest males in the kingdom showing the young ones how it was done. My father had Terry in a chokehold as Cassius was trying to free him. Damn it, Phil, Terry choked as my father laughed at him. I can still kick you, Terry. The crowd was cheering for Terry as Cassius managed to get his father free from mine. The three of them continued to spar until Cassius gave up and left my dad and Terry to continue wrestling. He walked over to me, smelling like sweat and blood. "Can I have a kiss, my queen?" He leaned down to me. I pushed him away with a look of disgust. "You smell." He grabbed me and held me to his smelly frame, and kissed my lips. I wrapped my arms around his neck as our kiss deepened. He let me go and then walked back towards my father and his father. They were both lying on the ground panting as Cassius helped them both up. "That is how you fight, ladies and gentlemen," Cassius said to the gathered crowd. Alpha Philip Mackenzie of Zephyr Moon, he held his hand out to my father as the crowd cheered. "You still have it, Phil," Cassius clasped his hand. My father clapped his hand on Cassius's back, "And you almost have it, Cassius." Cassius rolled his eyes, "Whatever, Philip. I almost got you." "Almost, Cassius. Almost." My father winked at him as they walked back towards us. "The rest of you back to your training," Cassius ordered the crowd. They all murmured as they dispersed. He faced me and ran the back of his hand down my cheek. The bruises and cuts on his body were quickly healing. He leaned down to kiss me again. "I have a big surprise for you, my queen. Why don't you go get cleaned up?" "What kind of surprise?" I wrapped my arms around him. He laughed. "It wouldn't be a surprise if I told you." "Fine," I huffed. "I'll go shower in the ladies' locker room and meet you back out here." "I'll do the same." He kissed me one more time before releasing me. I started to walk towards the ladies' locker room, and he smacked me. "Really, Cassius?" I heard my father growl. "Yes, Phil. She is my mate, and every inch of that delicious body of hers is mine." I looked back to see my mate and father staring each other down. They had smirks on their faces. I laughed at them. It was a good thing that they got along so well. I entered the locker room and smiled at the few other females. "Way to go, Queen Gemma," a raven-haired female walked up to me. "For what?" I asked her. "Oh, I saw you were sparring with young Alpha Ian earlier, and you held your own against him," she explained. "He's my twin brother. We have been sparring with each other since we were 10. And fought long before that." "Oh, I know. But I know how tough he is to beat," she laughed. "Part of me wishes he was my mate." I snorted. "I hear that a lot." I grabbed my soap and shampoo from my designated locker. I stripped off my clothes and walked into the showers. I didn't mind showering with the other females. The bruises I had received from sparring were already more or less gone. Leonora was on the ball with healing me. I finished my shower and got dressed. I walked out of the shower, and Cassius was waiting outside with my brother and our fathers. "Are you ready for your surprise?" He smiled broadly at me. "It's waiting for you in the library." He sounded so excited about it that it made me excited. I loved his last surprise when he took me to the Wolfsbane concert. I guess, I tried to sound uninterested as he linked his arm into mine. He leaned down to my ear. "Trust me. You will love this surprise." We walked quickly into the palace and towards the library. I started to get nervous, not knowing what my mate had in store for me. We walked into the library, and my mother was sitting on the couch with Izzy while Tiffany was standing in the corner, facing away from me. She turned around, and I saw my sunshine in her arms. "Mommy!" Nicky shouted as his aunt set him on the ground. "Nicky!" I replied loudly as he ran to me. I swept him into my arms as tears fell out of my eyes. I kissed the top of his head, and I held him tightly. "Oh, Nicky!" I sobbed. "Don't cry, Mommy!" I hardly noticed there were others in the room as I was focused on my child. I felt my mother's hand on my shoulder. "Oh, Mom, thank you for bringing Nicky a couple of days early." She smiled at me. It was Cassius's idea. I turned to my mate, who had the biggest smile on his face. "Thank you for giving me a couple more days with my baby, Cass." He stroked my cheek. "Gemma, Nicky isn't going to be here for just a couple of days." "What?" He cupped my cheek. "Gemma, Nicky is going to live here in the palace from now on, with you and me." I sobbed out loud as he said those words. "Really? Do you mean it? Nicky is going to stay here, with me?" I cried as Nicky wiped the tears from my cheek. "Did you hear that, Nicky? You are going to live here from now on." My son giggled as he struggled out of my arms. I set him down and then hugged my mother and sister. Then turned my attention to Cassius. I wrapped my arms around him and buried my face in his chest. "Thank you, Cassius. You have no idea how happy this makes me." He ran his hand under my chin and lifted it so that our eyes met. "I know exactly how happy you are right now." He touched his chest. "Mate bond, you know." He kissed me as Nicky ran around the library laughing. "Taking you away from your son was the biggest mistake I have ever made. I hurt you deeply, and I couldn't stand your sadness anymore. So, I talked to Jeremy, and he agreed to allow Nicky to live here." Jeremy. As much as I loved seeing Nicky, I felt terrible that Jeremy couldn't be with our son. I told Jeremy that he was free to come here and visit Nick anytime he wanted. "I'll leave the custody and visitation details up to you two," he explained. "I love you so much, Cassius." He kissed me again before releasing his hold on me. "Come on, let's show Nick his new room." "Nicky!" I called my son who was jumping on the sofa. "Quit jumping on that sofa. Cassius wants to show us your new room." My son hopped off the sofa and ran over to me. I clasped his tiny hand as Cassius led us all towards the elevators. "Now, it's not much for now as I had it set up on short notice. You can set it up how you want later," he said to me. The elevator doors opened, and Ainsley and her mate stepped off. "Well, it's about time you graced us with your presence, Ainsley," Izzy said with her hands on her hips. Ainsley blinked at the crowd in front of her. She and Casper both appeared to be hung over. "Oh, hi everyone," she glanced at my parents and son. "Lots of new faces," she mumbled. "Ainsley, this is Gemma's son Nick, and her parents Phil and Melinda, her younger sister Tiffany and you know Ian." Cassius introduced us all. "Hi everyone. I'm Ainsley, Cass's sister, and this is Casper, my mate." She waved. "If you'll excuse us, we are starving and need food." She grabbed Casper's hand and pulled him down the hall while the rest of us all squeezed into the elevator. After the doors opened, Cassius leads us to the room across from ours. He opened the door, and we walked in. It was a hair smaller than ours. I could smell the wet paint as it had been painted blue. There was a cool race car bed, lots of toy cars, and a large TV against the wall. I saw a few bags and boxes sitting in a corner. Your parents brought some of Nick's belongings with them. I'll let you guys put them away later. But I had the Omegas set up the room last night. Nicky giggled as he ran over to the bed and jumped on it. This is mine. Cassius walked over to him and picked him up. It made me happy to see my son smile at my mate. Yes, Nick, this is all yours. What do you think? I love cars, my son exclaimed as Cassius set him down. Nicky ran around the room, squealing and giggling as he picked up various toys. This is great, Cass. I linked my arm with him, thank you. Anything for my queen, he kissed my lips as my tummy rumbled. I had a big lunch prepared and set up in the garden for everyone. He announced to the room. Shall we go down there? Nicky, are you hungry? I asked my excited son. We can go get lunch, and then I'll show you the game room. Chicky nuggets? He asked as I glanced at Cassius. I had the cooks prepare all kinds of kid-friendly food, he stated. And there are chicky nuggets? I asked as I picked up Nicky. Cassius nodded, there better be. I hugged my son as we all headed out of Nicky's new room. We made it down to the garden, and there was a tent set up with a buffet of food waiting for us. I set Nicky down and picked up a plate, and placed his favorite foods on it. We all sat down on the tables that had been set up. Nicky happily munched away on his chicky nuggets. Do you like it here, Nick? Cassius asked him. Nicky nodded, this place has chicky nuggets. The child knows what he wants, Cassius laughed. Izzy cleared her throat. Gemma, I hate to interrupt your time with your son, but Ursula finished the alterations on the gown, and we need to have you try it on again. I cringed. And there are some last-minute arrangements for the coronation that need to be made. She explained. I'll watch Nick for you, my sister offered. You can take him to the game room, I told her. Okay, Izzy, after we eat, we can go do that. I smiled at my sister, thank you, Tiff. Hopefully, we can hang out later tonight. Can I go too, Izzy? My mother asked her. Of course you can, Melinda, Izzy replied. I looked over at my son, Nicky, would you like to go with Auntie Tiffy to see the game room? I have to go with Grandma and Izzy. There is a bowling alley. His eyes lit up, can I bowl? He loved bowling. Of course, I ruffled his hair. I noticed he had eaten all of his food, you ate all of your lunch like a good boy. My wolf was hungry, he growled playfully. The hours of the day passed quickly. I tried on the god-awful coronation gown and then made the final arrangements for my coronation. Then I joined my siblings and son in the game room. We had hours of fun until dinner. Then after a long day, it was bedtime. I bathed Nick and then tucked him into his new car bed. Will you be okay in this big room by yourself? I said as I lay next to him. I'm a brave wolf, Mommy, he beamed at me. I made sure he had Jeremy, his stuffed wolf. Mommy, Lasher said he is an alpha, so I must be an alpha someday. I sighed. You know your daddy is going to be Uncle Ian's beta, and someday you will be a beta beside Uncle Ian's son. He folded his little arms, but I don't want to be a beta, Mommy. I am an alpha. We'll see what happens, Nikki. Life is never set in stone. I think you would be a great alpha someday. I kissed the top of his little head. Want a story? He nodded as I looked at the bookshelf. What do you want to hear? Lightning McQueen book, he pointed to his favorite book. It was well worn. I pulled it from the shelf and sat beside him, and began to read. He was asleep before I could finish, but I finished anyway. I leaned down and looked at my sleeping pup. I couldn't believe he was here with me. I kissed his cheek and pulled the blanket up over him. I put the book back on the shelf and strolled out of the room. I dimmed the lights and walked out. I entered mine and Cassius's room. My mate was lying on one of the couches watching sports news. He smiled as I walked in. I leaned down and kissed him. I am going to go shower and get ready for bed. He smiled against my lips. All right, love. I quickly showered and then dressed in a silky nightgown. I walked over to the couch and straddled Cassius. I grabbed his face in my hands and kissed him deeply. My eyes are looking into his ocean blue ones. You are so getting an eye-popping, mind-blowing, blow job tonight, and then I am going to ride you until I can't walk anymore. He growled lowly, oh, I like the sound of that, my queen. Does that mean you liked your surprise? Cassius, I didn't like my surprise. I loved my surprise. I can't thank you enough for today. I love you so much, Cassius Fury. And nothing will ever change that, I said as I slid off of his lap and unzipped his pants. Gemma's POV for the first time in weeks. My dreams were nothing but happy images of children playing in the field of daisies. There were at least 2 more besides the twins and Nikki. The other 2 had brown hair and blue eyes like Cassius. They laughed as Cassius frolicked through the field with them as they played tag or hide and seek. Nikki kept calling Cassius Dad. I wondered if this was a premonition or just a random dream. The happy scene faded, and I fell into darkness, then I felt trapped. Not like I was imprisoned, but like something was lying on top of mine. I opened my eyes, and Cassius was lying on top of me. His face buried in my shoulder as our bodies were smashed together. I could feel that we were still coupled. Did we seriously fall asleep? Leonora snickered in my head. You 2 went at it pretty heavy last night. Enoch and I enjoyed the show. I snorted at my wolf. You are welcome, naughty wolf. I struggled to get out from under my mate. It didn't hurt to be under him. I just didn't like the feeling of being trapped. One of my hands was free, and I used it to smack Cassius's arm. He didn't budge and continued to snore into my shoulder. I shook his arm harder, and he just snorted. Cass! I said louder to him. Cassius! Suddenly his arms surrounded me as I saw those electrifying blue eyes open and his face spread in a smirk. Cassius placed a kiss on my lips. It seems we may have fallen asleep. According to Leonora, we put on a good show. I wrapped my arms around his muscular form as he lightly thrust into me. How was he already hard? He growled lowly. Enoch concurs. He plastered my lips with his, and we hungrily devoured each other. Tongues became engaged in a fight for dominance as I wrapped my legs around his thrusting hips. I like how you are always ready for me. I breathed out. Mommy. What are you doing? My son's head suddenly popped up next to the bed. His blue eyes widened as Cassius stopped thrusting into me. Luckily he was partially covered by a bedsheet. I looked at my son, unable to form any words. Nikki. What are you doing in here? I wondered how I didn't hear the door opening. I thought he was hurting you. His lower lip quivered. Shaking my head, I tried to move out from under my mate. Cassius rolled onto his side and growled as I sat up. No, baby. We were doing what grown ups who love each other do. All night. He asked as my eyes widened. You have been in here all night? He shrugged and crawled onto the bed. Yes, he grinned at me. Can I play with you guys too? I glanced back at Cassius, who had his arm over his eyes. No, Nikki, I narrowed my eyes at him. Now cover your eyes so Cassius can get up. He frowned as his hands covered his blue eyes. Cassius rolled off the bed and moved quickly into the bathroom. Now keep your eyes covered while Mommy puts on her nightgown, I said to my pup. I got out of bed and found my nightgown, and put it on. I walked back over to the bed. Let's go back to your room and get you dressed and ready for breakfast. He slid off, and I clasped his little hand, and we walked across the hall to his room. I scrounged through the drawers. What do you want to wear today? I asked my son. He pulled out one of his car's shirts. I picked out a pair of blue jeans for him and helped him dress. I combed his growing hair. We should get you a haircut. No, he whined while shaking his little head, I want long hair. I sighed. Cass, are you mad? I mind-linked my mate while fussing with Nikki. No, he replied. Sorry about Nikki interrupting us. It's all right, Gemma, he said. I finished with Nikki and led him back across the hall. I set him on the couch and turned on the TV. You stay right here. Mommy has to shower and get dressed. Don't move. He nodded and turned his attention to the TV. I had put on SpongeBob SquarePants. I walked into the bathroom, and Cassius was standing in front of the mirror shaving while wearing only a towel. I almost started drooling as I stared at him. He smirked and glanced at me. You sure like staring at me, I wrapped my hands around his muscular arm. Well, it's hard not to do when I have my own Adonis. I kissed his shaved cheek. Oh, I like it smooth. I traced a finger down his cheek. I released him and stripped off my nightgown, and turned on the shower. Cassius pinned me to the wall as I stepped in. He pummeled my lips with his. Cass, I breathed out as his hands pinned mine to the wall. I wanted to give in to the kiss. Cass, Nikki is watching TV on the couch. He sighed and released me. Sorry, he walked back out of the shower. I felt a little guilty now. I sighed and quickly finished my shower. I wrapped myself in a towel and walked out of the bathroom to my son and mate, laughing together. Cassius was sitting on the couch dressed in one of his suits while Nikki sat on his lap. They were both laughing at SpongeBob. I watched them for a moment as Nikki explained the show to Cassius. "Mommy, Cass likes SpongeBob," my son said to me as Cassius looked back at me with a grin. "Well, who doesn't really?" I replied to him as I walked into the closet. I chose a pair of dark jeans and a black shirt with a skull on it. I wasn't feeling the professional attire today. I then pulled on my black boots. Satisfied with my look, I brushed my hair and pulled it into a ponytail as my stomach grumbled with hunger. The boys were still laughing as I walked out. "Are you two ready for breakfast?" "I'm ready," Cassius replied. He looked at my son. "Are you ready for breakfast, Nick?" "I had the kitchen staff make your favorite chocolate chip waffles." My son's face lit up as he hopped off of Cassius's lap and ran for the door. "Waffles!" He jumped up and down, waiting for us to follow him out the door. I grabbed his little hand, and he nearly pulled me down the hall. I smiled at Cassius. He loves waffles. Who doesn't love waffles? Cassius chuckled. We reached the elevator, and my parents were waiting beside Cassius's parents, along with my sister Tiffany. "Hey everyone," I greeted everyone. "Good morning, sweetheart," my mother replied. "How did you sleep?" I snorted. "I feel like I woke up under a rock," Cassius snickered behind me. "Nikki, how do you like your new race car bed?" My mom picked up her grandson. "I like it, Grandma," he responded. The door to the elevator opened, and we all squeezed in. This elevator used to seem huge. I laughed out loud. "Well, it feels small with 3 alpha males and their mates," Terry chuckled. Silence fell on us in the elevator. It opened again, and we all walked towards the dining room. My mom set Nicky down on the floor, and he ran ahead of us, singing about waffles. "Nicky! Slow down!" I called to him. He looked back at me. "But Mommy, waffles!" He stomped his little foot. "Yeah, Mommy waffles," Cassius scooped up Nicky. "Come on, Nick. It's waffle time." He laughed. "Waffles, waffles, waffles," he and Nicky chanted down the hallway. My mother leaned into me. "It's good to see Cassius getting along with Nicholas so well." "I agree, Mom." We finally reached the dining room, and everyone stood up as my parents went to sit by Ian and Delilah. I stood by Cassius, who still had Nicky in his arms. "Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful morning, isn't it?" Cassius spoke to the room. "I would like to welcome Alpha Philip Mackenzie and his family to the palace. This cutie is Nick, my queen's handsome son. Alpha Philip's family is here to celebrate Gemma's coronation. And little Nick here will be living here forever." Cassius smiled at my pup. "I hope you all have a good day. Let's eat." "Waffles!" Nicky shouted. "Waffles!" Cassius laughed out as he sat with Nicky on his lap. The Omegas brought forth breakfast. "I can take Nicky now," I said to my laughing mate. He looked at Nick and smiled. "I can hold him." Nick squealed and clapped as a pile of waffles were set in front of him. Cassius helped him butter them and poured syrup over them. I couldn't help but smile as my mate seemed to take to Nick naturally. Nicky hummed happily as he devoured his waffles. "So, Nick, how was your first night in the palace?" Terry asked my son. "Fun," he exclaimed with a mouthful of waffles. I heard another pup's laughter as little Nikolai ran in with Maria and Angela. He slowed down and stared at my son sitting on the king's lap. He slowly approached me. Good morning, Nikolai, I smiled at the pup. This is my son Nick. My son spied the other pup and waved at him. Nikolai squealed and waved back. I hoped the two would become friends. Nikolai ran to Maria and hopped onto her lap. So, Cassius, do you need me to help in the office today? He shook his head. I figured I would give you the day off to spend with your son and the rest of your family as it's about to get hectic with coronation preparations, he answered me. Thank you, I smiled at him and squeezed his hand. So, Mom, Dad, what do you want to do today? There is a nice park with a super fun playground, Izzy suggested. I used to take Cassie and Ainsley there when they were pups. That sounds like fun, Izzy. They just finished the new playground. There is also a carousel and a Ferris wheel with a big duck pond. Oh, maybe you can pack a picnic to take. I looked down the table at my parents. How does that sound? That sounds great, Gemma, my mom smiled back at me. I'll have to take a rain check, kiddo, my dad said. Terry and I are going golfing. I rolled my eyes. Okay, Dad. We'll hang out later today, alright, sweetie? Tiffany, do you want to come too? My sister smiled. Of course, Gemma. Gemma, would you like to see pup care? Angela asked. I know you'll need it for the days you have to work. I nodded. That's a good idea, Angela. Mom, Tiffany, we'll go to the park a little later. I want to check out pup care for Nikki. We finished up with breakfast. Cassius wrapped his arms around me and kissed my lips. You have a good day with your family, my love. I'll push through the boring stuff alone. I sighed. I'll miss you, my king. I returned the kiss as he reluctantly pulled away from me. I picked up Nikki and followed Angela and Nikolai to pup care. It was located near the Royal Hospital. It was an old schoolhouse-shaped building with a large fenced-in playground. I heard laughing pups from within as we entered. A pair of workers looked up as we entered. Good morning, Dr. Hall. One of the workers with long grey hair and light blue eyes said to her, then she noticed me and bowed. Your Majesty, she smiled at me. Barb, the Queen here has brought her pup, Nick, to check out pup care, Angela said to her. The woman called Barb stepped towards me. Of course, she held out a hand as my son ran past her and the other worker after Nikolai. Nicky. I called to him. Oh, Your Majesty, he will be all right while we talk. I nodded at her. I don't want to impose. She laughed. You can never impose, Queen Gemma. Angela tapped me on the shoulder. I have to go to work. I hope Nick likes it here. I looked into the playroom, and Nick was already playing with Nikolai and another male pup. It looks like he already does. He certainly is an outgoing pup, Barb stated. He gets that from his father, I said to her. I waved as Angela left the building. I would just like to check things out here since my son will be living in the palace now. Yes, of course, Your Majesty. I can show you around while Nick plays with the other pups, Barb explained to me. I looked to where Nicky was. He had found toy cars, and he was happily playing with Nikolai and the other pup. That would be great, thank you, Barb. Barb led me through the facility. There were several rooms divided by age. There was even a room for infants. I looked in at the sleeping babies and smiled. There seemed to be enough work to care for all of the pups. You guys seem well equipped to care for all of the pups here, I said to her. Of course we are, Your Majesty. Queen Isabel made sure we have plenty of funding to hire enough qualified workers and teachers. We have a nurse in the building at all times. Everyone here is well vetted. That's good to hear, I rubbed my still flat belly. The king and I are expecting, and I am pleased to know our pups will be well cared for when we are working hard for the kingdom, I explained to her. Barb's eyes lit up in a smile. I bet the king is elated. And pups, you say? Twins? I nodded, it runs in my family. I have a twin. My mother has a twin, and her father had a twin and so on. The woman beside me laughed. That is great news, Your Majesty. I believe the king will be a great father. Before you came along, he would often come here and play with the pups. They all seemed to enjoy wrestling with him. I was impressed with what I heard about my mate. He was not only a good king, but he was going to be an excellent father. No wonder he was so happy when he knew I was pregnant. Barb continued the tour, and then we finished at the room where Nikki was. My son was still playing with Nikolai and the other pup. Nikki, I called to him. I knelt beside him and the other. Are you having fun with your new friends? He nodded at me with a big smile on his face. What are their names? He pointed at Nikolai. Nico, and that is Henry. He pointed at the other pup, and they continued their game. I stood up and looked at Barb as another worker walked over to us. She was a younger and thinner she-wolf. She bowed to me. Hello Queen Gemma, I am Grace. Hello Grace, I brought my son, Nick, to check out the facility. I pointed to my son, who seemed to have acquired 2 more friends in a matter of seconds. He seems to be fitting in perfectly. You are welcome to stay as long as you like. We are about to start sing-along time. She clapped her hands. Come along, pups. It's time for singing, the pups responded to her and sat on the floor. Nicky sat by his new friends, and I sat behind the group. A brown-haired female pup looked me up and down. I smiled at her. What is your name? She shrank away from me. Tia. Hi Tia, I am Gemma. I smiled at her as Grace and Barb started the sing-along time. I sang along with them while Tia crept closer to me. After sing-along time, they had story time. Then the pups played outside, and I pushed a few pups on the swings. It was nearly lunchtime, and I was starting to feel hungry again. The twins were still very tiny, but the hunger demands on my body was already beginning to take its toll. I walked over to Nikki. Come on, Nikki. We are going to a park with Grandma and Aunt Tiffany. But Mommy, I want to play with Nico and Henry some more. He whined. We'll come back tomorrow, Nikki. He growled quietly at me as I took his little hand. Don't be grumpy. We are going to have some chicky nuggets for lunch and ride the carousel and feed some duckies. He smiled at me. Okay, Mommy. I picked him up. Mom, are you and Tiffany ready for the park? I mind-linked her. Yes, Gemma, we are waiting near the kitchens. Izzy had the kitchen staff pack us a picnic lunch. Okay, I'll meet you there. I replied to her. Cass, I mind-linked my mate. I am going to the park now with Nikki, my mom, and Tiffany. Okay, love, I'll have the limo out front waiting for you. The limo isn't necessary for the park. Oh well, he snickered. I shook my head as I carried Nikki into the palace and eventually found my mom and sister near the kitchens. We were checking out pup care, and Nikki made some new friends. My mom was holding a picnic basket. That's good to hear. Nick is always making friends everywhere he goes. He is definitely Jeremy's son in that aspect, I chuckled. The limo is out front for us, I said to them. Oh, a limo, Tiffany clapped her hands. I snorted as I lead them out the front door. Bruce smiled and bowed as he opened the door for us. Hello, Your Majesty, he greeted me. The king said you would require transportation. I noticed a black SUV parked behind the limo with Sam and his guard squad. Tiffany saw me looking at them. Are they going to follow us? I nodded. Yep. I have my very own squad of goons. I slid into the limo. Wow, isn't that kind of weird to be followed everywhere you go? My sister asked. It is weird. But I am getting used to it. I replied as the limo drove away from the palace. We are going to the park, Bruce. The one with the carousel. He glanced back at me. I nodded, yeah. We arrived at the park within minutes and filed out. Sam and his men spread out around us. My sister seemed fascinated by it while my mother barely noticed. What should we do first? I asked everyone. How about the carousel? My sister suggested, right Nick? My son nodded. I clasped his hand and followed the signs towards the carousel. We were in a large park with lots of different things to do. A huge elaborate playground was in the middle with lots of playing pups. Lots of big trees and flowers. Grassy hills to roll around on. We found the large carousel that had various animals for the pups to ride. There was a small Ferris wheel beside it. Nikki jumped up and down as we got in line. The other line all stared at us. Everyone is staring at us, Tiffany whispered to me. I am the queen, Tiff. Of course, they are staring, I laughed. Well, I will be officially in a few days, but I already have the aura, or so I have been told. Tiffany snorted. You are still my big sister to me. I poked her arm. Some things will never change. We got on the carousel, and Nikki chose to ride a large tiger. He squealed as it moved up and down. I held him on the tiger while Tiffany rode a rearing horse beside us. I got a little dizzy as we rode the carousel 3 times in a row. Let's go do something else, I said to my son and sister. My mom was waiting outside the fencing holding the picnic basket. Are you guys hungry yet? I nodded as my stomach rumbled. I don't know how these tiny pups make me feel so hungry already. My mom laughed. Sweetheart, you are carrying twin alpha pups of the royal line. They are going to grow a little faster than other pups. It's going to take a lot out of you, I am afraid. Did Ian and I do that to you? Yep, and you two weren't royals. Just alphas. I sighed heavily and rubbed my belly. Oh boy, I mumbled as we found a table and set out the food. Nicky was happy as I set chicky nuggets and chips in front of him. I sat beside him and hungrily ate a turkey sandwich. I chatted with my mother and sister about the coronation as the sun came out from the clouds. It was a perfect day for a picnic. Then the peace was broken when a wretched smell reached my nostrils. I looked towards my guards, and they had formed a protective circle around us. Then I heard screams from the other people in the park as more than a dozen rogues walked out of the trilene. "Mom, get Nicky and Tiffany to the limo," I said as I stood up. "Cassius, rogue attack in the park," I mind-linked my mate. I watched as the park erupted into chaos as she-wolves scrambled to collect their pups. The rogues instantly attacked my guards. "Everyone, follow me," I shouted to the others in the park and led them to the limo. There were about a dozen she-wolves and their pups. Bruce had the door of the limo opened, and I directed everyone into the limo. I heard the snarling and growls coming from my guards and the rogues. I looked back to see one of my guards decapitated while the others seemed to be struggling. I slammed the door of the limo. "Bruce, get them to safety," I ordered him in my queen tone. "Gemma!" my mother shouted from inside the limo. Bruce hesitated to follow my order. "Your Majesty, you need to get in the limo. Get them to safety, Bruce!" I shouted in my tone again to him as I turned and ran towards the fight. My guards were down to 4 as 2 had already perished. I saw a rogue getting ready to eviscerate Sam. With a growl, I ran towards them, shifting on the way. My white wolf jumped on the rogue and instantly snapped his neck. 2 rogues lunged at me, and I easily dodged their attack as I slashed the guts out of one. My white fur turned red as I attacked the rogues and ripped out throats. I soon heard howls as a dozen royal warriors ran into the fight, followed by a large black wolf. He tackled a rogue and ripped its head off. He looked at me with a snarl. "What are you doing, Gemma?" "Fighting rogues, what does it look like?" The royal warriors quickly killed the rogues. When the fight was down, I sat on my haunches and panted. It was still early enough in my pregnancy that shifting wouldn't affect the twins, but it still took a lot of energy out of me. The black wolf stepped into view as he sniffed me over. "Are you hurt?" "Just some scratches," I replied. He shifted back into human form, and some shorts appeared in his hand, which he pulled on. The other warriors shifted into human form. He blocked their bodies from my view. "How did that many rogues get this far into the territory?" he bellowed. His head warrior ward walked over to him. "They disguised their scent, Your Majesty. We didn't notice they had entered until they attacked here," Ward explained while glancing at me. "Is the Queen all right?" Cassius glanced at me. I was still in wolf form. "She appears fine." "The Queen fought well, Your Majesty," Sam said to him. I noticed my guard was covered in blood from various wounds. "I'm afraid I lost 2 men," he said sadly, "and 2 more are wounded. I am sorry we failed you." Sam bowed his head. Cassius sighed. "Lucky for you, my queen is quite the fighter." "That she is, Your Majesty." "Get to the hospital and get checked out, Sam. We'll take care of the others." Sam was taken away by other warriors as Cassius faced me. You know I am upset that you stayed to fight rather than getting into the limo, right? I nodded my furry head. Now, get back to the palace and get cleaned up. We'll take care of this, please. He growled at me. My wolf huffed and then took off towards the palace. Was I wrong to stay and fight, Leonora? If I had thought you or the pups were in danger, I would have made you leave. She replied. We are warriors. Our urge to fight rather than flee is strong. I wish Cassius realized that. We reached the palace, and Maria met me at the front door. She held up some clothes, and I looked around, seeing the coast was clear. I shifted and put on the clothes Maria handed me. Did my mom and the others make it back here safely? I asked her. She nodded. Yes, your family is waiting for you in the sitting room. Brushing past her, I headed to the room. My mother stood up as I walked in. Gemma Mackenzie, what were you thinking? My mother yelled at me with tears in her eyes. Mommy! Nicky ran over to me, and I picked him up. My sister was right behind him. I couldn't just leave Sam and the others to be killed. My mother blew out a long sigh. Gemma, you are pregnant. You can't be fighting rogues. I shifted Nicky to my hip. Mom, it's still early enough that they were in no danger. She glared at me. Don't ever do that to me again. Mom, I am a warrior. It's in my nature to not run from a fight. Sorry to scare you. But as you can see, I am fine. There were only a few scratches on my arms and legs. Nothing major. Moments later, I sensed Cassius behind me. He stood in the doorway with his arms folded. He was wearing only a pair of shorts. We need to talk, he rumbled out and then walked out of the room. I'll watch Nicky, Tiffany told me. I set him on the ground. Nicky, I have to go talk to Cassius. You stay here with Auntie Tiffy and Grandma. Okay. He nodded sadly and took his aunt's hand. I followed Cassius to his office. I noticed the door had been fixed. He sat behind his desk and buried his face in his hands. I walked over and sat on his lap. I'm sorry, Cassius. I just couldn't leave Sam and the guards to fight the rogues alone. I know you couldn't, Gemma. He wrapped his arm around my waist. It just scares me whenever you are in a fight, especially now. He lightly stroked my belly. This is our future. Look, I know you are capable, but it still scares me to think of you fighting rogues. I leaned against his chest. They were in no danger. Leonora would not have allowed me to shift if she thought the pups would have been hurt. He sighed. That reassures me a little. His eyes shifted from blue to black momentarily. I am sorry, Enoch. I know it scares you too. I said to his wolf. A growl came from his chest. I guess Leonora is trying to calm down, Enoch, he chuckled as Maria and Ward walked into the office. Rogues got through our border and made it to the park to attack your queen. Was I the target or just conveniently there? I asked. Your Majesty, the rogues only attacked there. We believe you were the target as they didn't reveal themselves until they were in the park. Oh, I glanced at Cassius, who was wearing an angry expression. Are any of those alive? Maria stepped forward, 2 of them, Cass. Well, you know what to do, Maria, Cassius growled. Find out everything you can. Ward, you find out how they were able to get past the border patrol. Go now. He barked. Maria and Ward left the room. Cassius sighed again and just held me. You are not to leave the palace until we get to the bottom of this. I tried to protest. It's not like I'll have time over the next few days. I laid my head on his chest. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. You acted on instinct, and I am proud of that. You saved regular she-wolves and pups. Exactly what I expect of my queen. But you were still scared I would get hurt. He nodded, yes. I circled my finger on his bare chest. I love you too, Cassius. I kissed his neck. He shuddered as I nibbled the soft skin. I am going to go take a shower to wash off rogue funk. I stood up and tried to walk away, only to be held back. I'm coming with. He growled seductively in my ear. Then you can go be with your family. Your father and my father are back from golf. I think you should hang out with your family the rest of the day. Thank you, Cassius. We linked arms and walked out of the office. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.